Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Tuesday, February the 4th, 2025. And as always, it was great to have everyone along last night for Talking Boxing. And plenty of discussions to be had. Always look forward to Monday night. It's always a really good couple of hours. It really flies past very, very quickly. And it's really just good to have good, honest, sometimes robust discussions. It's really good in a respectful way. It's really enjoyable. And then the main topic last night was, of course, the Benavidez-Morrell fight. Most people sharing the view that Benavidez is a very deserving winner, but also Morrell a very game loser. You can call him a loser, probably not. The guy that came up second best on the night, we'll call him. But then, of course, a lot of talk switching to Canelo and Canelo ducking and what's next for Benavidez. Will he go up to cruiserweight? Will he stay at light heavyweight to fight Benavidez and Bivol the winner? I think that seems the more logical sort of course of action for him, you would think. To stay at light heavyweight, try and fight the winner of Benavidez and Bivol. The only, of course, little spanner in the works is if Bivol does beat Benavidez, then we might have a trilogy, and then what happens to Benavidez then? I think the rematch with Morrell would be probably the most logical thing for him after that. But still, just good to have plenty of sides of view in the whole conversation. It was really good, and as I said, that probably dominated the talk on the night. Some news this morning. Now, I thought it was actually a done deal sort of a week or so ago, but it looks like finally the Canelo-Crawford fight is now going to be official. It will be the second Saturday of September. I think it's the 13th. It will be the Mexican public holiday. I think it's the Independence Day holiday in Las Vegas. It'll be part of the Riyadh season, but it will be in Las Vegas. And it'll be at a full 168, no rehydration clauses, nothing like that. It'll just be for, well, maybe all the belts, because Canelo looks like he will fight again in May, Cinco de Mayo, like he always does. But hopefully it will be against William Skull, and we will get an undisputed title fight in September. And even though we've been talking about this for quite some time, the fact that it's, let's say, done and dusted now, it's all official. Now we've got to start getting our heads around exactly what will happen. I know we've all had our different points of view and everything, the way it's going to go down, but it's going to be a fascinating, what is it away? 8 months to go? What is it, September? So 7 months. All the build-up. Canelo's, of course, got to get through that May fight, which I'm sure he will. If it's William Skull, I don't think he's going to have a lot of problems getting through him. But Crawford will sit out until September, so no fight for him. So yes, does Crawford have a chance? I think he does. I think he has a chance. I know it's easy to say Canelo too big, too strong, but if you look at the two guys side by side, there's not that much difference as far as obviously their height. I think Crawford might even have him covered in reach. For me, the big question just comes down to, can Crawford carry the weight effectively and not be hampered with his movement or his hand speed or whatever it might be? That's the biggest question for me. The fact that Canelo is going to be way bigger than Crawford is not the factor, because this skill and boxing IQ that someone like Terence Crawford has will far outweigh the physical advantages of Canelo. A little bit like we spoke about last night with Canelo fighting Benavidez. As much as Benavidez would be the much bigger man than Canelo if they fought, you still can't take away the fact that Canelo has him more than covered with technique, boxing IQ, just everything. And I think that's a similar story for Crawford against Canelo. But as I said, the big thing for me is that can Crawford carry 168 effectively and not be hindered with the extra weight? Because you've got to remember, he didn't look overly great at 154. Now, I don't know whether that was just inactivity. Maybe Madrimov is just a lot better fighter than what we thought. But Crawford just didn't look his usual dynamic self, especially the one that turned up against Errol Spence. So going up 14 more pounds can be done. But the one thing that always gives me a little bit of hope. And look, end of the day, I'm not hoping he wins. I just hope we get a great fight. It's the Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler thing. And again, I know Leonard's not Crawford's not going up anywhere. Rewind. Crawford is going up a lot more than what Leonard did against Hagler, but it's a similar type of scenario of that very, very skillful fighter just forgetting about all the weight advantages of his opponent and just giving him a boxing lesson. In my opinion, I thought Leonard won the fight. But anyway, that's another argument. So can Crawford do it? Yes, I think he can do it. I've got a feeling he won't come in at the whole 168. I think it'll be sort of 163, 164, something like that. But either way, it's going to be a massive build-up and a true fight of two modern-day legends. And you don't see this too often. Is it as big as like Pacquiao Mayweather? No, it's not. But it's probably the biggest name fight since then, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. If there are other options out there, let me know. But that's the only one I can sort of think of in recent times, which is what, 10 years ago now. Is that 10 years ago? Mayweather Pacquiao was 10 years ago. Wow. Now I do feel old. So anyway, we'll see the build up for that one. It's also been spoken about with Naoya Inoue's plans for 2025. Of course, he's just come off that win a couple of weeks ago. He will fight again in June in Las Vegas, probably against David Picasso. Then they're talking about September back in Japan, and then Saudi Arabia in December. So a big year for the monster. When do you see a fighter of the stature of Naoya Inoue fight 4 times in a calendar year? You've got to take your hat off to this guy, don't you, for being active. Now, whether that happens is another thing. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they scrap one of those dates and maybe it's just the 3 dates. But geez, if it is, the fact that he does fight 4 times, that is amazing, especially with the competition. If he does fight 4 times, I doubt that we'll see the Nakatani fight or maybe the MJ fight, the Mirajon, you know what I'm talking about, MJ, we'll call him. I can never spit it out. But you would doubt that he would fight him or MJ and Nakatani in the same year. So I've got a feeling there might be the MJ fight. I think he will succumb to the taunts of Eddie Hearn and take that fight. I don't think he ducks anyone in a way. So that fight will happen. And maybe, who are they talking about in, maybe Nick Ball. That was the one they were talking about maybe in December. So that would be a big way to end the year. I don't think he fights Fulton again. I think that one won't happen. I think it was so conclusive in the first fight. That won't happen. But now another fight that they're talking about that might happen is Anthony Joshua up against Martin Bakole in Africa. And I think they were talking about in the same place where Ali, was that Kinshasa, Zaire, or whatever it is, but to celebrate, it won't be 50 years, it'll be 51 years for the anniversary of that fight, but something to tie in with that fight will be Anthony Joshua, Martin Bakole. Now that's a dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua, if you ask me. Bakole can punch, big man. That is a dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua. Now I do get it in some respects that if Fury does stay retired or is stuffing Joshua around, which you could probably expect that he would do, and Usyk fights Dubois or Parker, and there's not much happening for Anthony Joshua, I could probably see him saying, you know what, well, I've got to do what's best for my career. I need another big fight, a big money fight. And if it was in Africa, you would expect that the money would be huge for Anthony Joshua to go over there and fight. Now, he is of Nigerian descent, so it does sort of add an element to the all-African fight. And I think it would be massive. They could really promote that up. Now, I'm not sure whether, I'm assuming, would it be part of the Riyadh season? Would they do it in Africa? Whatever it is, even if it's just Matchroom. That would be a massive event over there, and it'd be an interesting crowd, wouldn't it? The Africans over there against with 2 fighters from Africa, well, one of African descent, but yeah, no, it would be huge. Now, another fight that is happening is Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero. Now, no problems with the fight. no problems with the fight. Would rather it be Pitbull Cruz against Garcia, but I'm sure Romero will be just as entertaining. Now, they are going to be reportedly fighting for the WBA regular welterweight title. Now, neither of these guys have ever fought at welterweight. Neither of the guys are ranked by any of the organisations. Come this way, bud. And here we are. The WBA, in their wisdom, has said that they can fight for the WBA irregular title. Now, this is sort of flying in the face of what the WBA said they were going to do, and that's cut back the amount of titles they have. And in typical WBA style, or not just WBA, I suppose, but they're probably one of the main culprits, they will fight for the 147-pound regular title. Now, Stanionis will fight Ennis. Now, he's the super champion. I just forget these days. Fair dinkum with all these stupid titles, interim and global and super and all this bullshit. But apparently he's the super champion, and he will put that belt on the line against Boots Ennis. I think it's April 12th. So at least those two guys are fighting. But can you believe that WBA have done this? How could they possibly say it with a straight face to have two guys who have never fought at the weight and aren't ranked at the weight by any organisation that they're going to fight for a vacant belt? Just crazy. The fight itself should be pretty entertaining. It's May the 2nd, I think it is. So a big card in New York City. So the card itself should be good. I think it'll be entertaining. I think Haney and Ramirez will be an entertaining fight. Well, sorry, I'm not going to say entertaining. The odds are it won't be entertaining, but it's a good, solid fight of two-time world champions. So I like it. I don't mind it. And Ryan Garcia and Romero will be the sort of comedy relief. You can just imagine the lead up of that fight. So we'll see what happens with that one. Come here, man. So some really big cards being announced, or big fights on cards all close together, which is good, especially if you like to sort of get over to the States and see these shows. Now, just one last thing was, it come up in my feed and it really brought back some memories. It's the 45-year anniversary of the Salvador Sanchez, Danny Garcia fight from 1980. Now, the reason this has relevance to me is that not the first fight, the second fight was the first fight I ever seen on TV, a live boxing event on TV. So yes, that's how old I am. I'm in my early 50s now, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was on like one of the, was it Wide World of Sports or one of those things, and it was Salvador Sanchez versus Danny Little Red Lopez. And Salvador Sanchez did win the title in the first fight. I think it was a 13th round stoppage from memory. And at 21 years of age now, Danny Little Red Lopez had fought Ruben Olivares. Who had he fought? Bobby Chacon. Very, very well-credentialed fight. I think he had nearly 50 fights at the time as well. Came up against 21-year-old Salvador Sanchez, the Mexican legend, who just tragically died 2 years later at the age of 23. And even at the age of 23, there are people that think he is the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. Now, I certainly don't think that, because at 23, how could he possibly achieve what the likes of Julio Cesar Chavez and Canelo Alvarez have achieved? But I get what they're saying as far as maybe one of the most talented Mexican fighters of all time. And he wasn't the typical Mexican fighter either. Most Mexican fighters are very war ready, you know, not to say he wasn't, but the way he approached it, he was more of a boxer, counter puncher, very determined like all Mexican fighters are, but he was more of the boxer type rather than a slugger. And you know, most Mexican fighters love to get in close, rip, hook, you know, they're warriors. Now, Salvador Sanchez was a warrior in a different way. Definitely a boxer as such in the ring, but still had that mentality. And even in his short time, I mean, to beat Wilfredo Gomez, who was just on an absolute tear at the time, and then a young Azuma Nelson as well. I think that was his last fight, was a 15th round stoppage of Azuma Nelson, and he died just a few weeks later, I think, from after that fight. But to think that he is so revered at 23 years of age is just incredible. But as I said, I do remember the fight like it was yesterday. As a wide-eyed, probably 6 or 7 year old kid, I remember sitting down and watching that fight and just being totally, what's the word, bedazzled, is that the word, of watching these two guys go at it, and not just the fight itself, but it was the build-up. See, back then it was just different. I know it's hard to explain, but if you're of my vintage and used to watch those big fights on TV back then, it just had a different feel. Excuse me, I've got a fly buzzing around my head here. But I just remember the build-up to the fight. They did all the montages and the interviews, and I think they had a couple of undercard fights on, and it really just got my attention. Now, I'm not sure whether that was the fight, or watching that fight was the thing that got me really motivated and interested in boxing. I can't remember that part of it, but I do remember watching the fight itself and just being in awe of both of these guys. And I just remember Danny Little Red Lopez being just game as game, just a tough guy, and Salvador Sanchez really teeing off on him as the fight went on and stopping him and beating him twice. So anyway, just a little bit of nostalgia from my end from back in the day. So I just love seeing things pop up on the social media or just on boxing websites or whatever it might be, of things that bring back all sorts of memories. It's just yeah, good times. I'm sure all you guys and girls that have you know, in your 20s and 30s now, one day you'll be in the same boat where you look back and you go, geez, I remember Mayweather and Pacquiao, and I remember Mayweather De La Hoya, and these types of fights. Better be Bivol, whatever it might be. But that's my little look back at history anyway. So guys, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to get Neil home. It's another warm one today. We've probably gone a little bit longer than what I planned anyway, but we'll get him home in front of the air conditioner today, and I'm going to hit the road again to do some work. So guys, have a great Tuesday, and we'll catch you tomorrow.